whole nother set of emails and communications, that we have to respond back to. So it's literally in the course of a week. It's hard to get back to everybody individually. We try our best, and I ask people to be patient sometimes, and we'll try to get that response. For the most part, love and respect to people that understand the information, that appreciate the information, or are grasping what's being taught. And for the most part, we get positive support here at Mother Nubia. We rarely get any negativity, but occasionally, you get a knucklehead or two that pop out of the blue and think they know something, or I should say their ego gets the best of them and convinces them that they know something, and they tend to want to act ignorant sometimes. So, for the record, let me just state a couple of things. For those that do not know me, okay, I might be new to this YouTube thing, because as I've said on some older posts, I've only been doing the YouTube thing for about maybe, 6-7 months, fairly new, a few months under a year. I'm more of an old school head, dealt directly with people, but as I was convinced by people around me, social media is a powerful tool, and obviously some of us have to be up on the times, so to speak. I was told that this is a good platform. You could reach a lot of people, and you're missing a lot of opportunities to do that. And 100% agree with it, seeing the responses that we get. So something I probably should have started a while back. But though I might be new to some that do not know me on this, I'm not new to doing what I do. Let's make that clear, and I'll explain why I'm making that clear. Okay, I've been doing this well over 20-something years now. I want to say 25 years, 23 to 25 years, in that range. As far as dealing with different levels of spirituality, different levels of consciousness. So because you've never seen me before, may not have heard of me on a wide scale level, like some of these other fools that get on here and just scream and yell and talk a bunch of nonsense to pump up your ego and make you feel good. I'm not new to this, so I just want to make that clear. So every now and then you got a knucklehead that might want to send you a ridiculous email. I try not to go the negativity route and keep it positive, but every now and then you got to open up a can of whoop ass on somebody and put them in their place. So I make no qualms about it. If it's necessary to address somebody aggressively, we go ahead and do that. And I'm not speaking to anybody in particular, I'm just speaking in general. For the most part, it's about being productive, teaching, educating, moving forward. Those that get it will get it. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, and you shouldn't agree with anything I'm saying until you research it, come to the realization of it for yourself, then it becomes truth to you. I've said that on, I believe, several different classes, posts I've done on here. Truth becomes a reality to you when you confirm it for self. Not because somebody's telling you, not because you read it in a book. That doesn't make it true. It's not true until you raise yourself up to the realization of it. Then it becomes real truth. Real truth is when you confirm it for self. So let's establish that. If you don't like what I'm saying, then don't watch. You understand? It's that simple. Because if there's something I'm not interested in or particularly care about, I just don't participate in it. But the funny thing is, when some people claim they don't agree or like something, they still feel the need to keep coming back and responding or making stupid ass comments. Well, that just confirms to me, on the surface you're saying you don't agree with it or like it, but obviously it's striking some type of nerve inside of you to the point where you need to react. So it's actually, what I'm saying is having an effect on you whether you agree with it or not, because you wouldn't keep coming back and sending emails and responding, etc., if it was what I was saying had no relevance to what I was saying. Okay, so that part needs to be addressed. And over my last 20 plus years doing live classes, lectures, talking with people, I go back to an era up north where we walked the streets and we talked to people. We set up tables in the cities and people came up to our tables and we dialogued and we built with people all day. That's what we did. So I come from a older school era where it was the interaction with the people. Now obviously time has changed, like I said, with social media, and this is a great thing. So now we have technology we didn't have 10, 15, 20 years ago. where we couldn't reach a multitude of masses at one time. So I go to that era, and in that process, I've probably encountered every knucklehead from every mentality and level of information you could think of. I've had debates with every religious fanatic you can think of, spiritual people, atheists, you name it. I've had a dialogue with just about any one of them, and I have no qualms of addressing any issues that come my way. I've even said to people in the last 2 years, people even on here, if anybody would like to discuss about what I teach, you're more than welcome to do that face to face with me, and you could even come on the radio show. I'll be more than happy to plug you in and debate. But when I say make sure you come prepared, because the stuff I talk about on here is just scratching the surface. Okay, we're not even getting into in-depth metaphysics, personal metaphysics, spiritual aspects of things when dealing with the subconscious mind, because I will probe the subconscious mind to really find out what it is you think that you know. There's a difference from what you think you know and what you actually do know, because the conscious mind can play a lot of tricks on you. So anyway, having said that, we don't want to turn this into, that message is for maybe those that this message applies to. If this doesn't apply to you, then it's irrelevant. And I do it short and simple like this because I don't waste my time and energy responding all day to nonsense. I just don't do it, because where I'm at in this spiritual journey and the work that needs to be done, there's no time for. But if I have no qualms, like I said, when necessary, to open a can of whoop ass on somebody if need be. I have no problem debating anybody if need be. And if you feel like you would like to challenge the information that I'm teaching, then let's do it in a mature, respectable, and intellectual way. And we can agree to disagree as mature, intelligent, thinking beings. So anyway, having said that, what I want to kind of discuss today, a couple of different things. Since we've been dealing in depth with the subconscious mind, reprogramming it, and connecting various aspects of different levels of information into this topic is important, because there's a certain mindset that's going on amongst spiritually conscious people. And what do I mean by that? Okay. When you look around to people that are into spirituality, there's levels of this shit. Okay. You have people, if you notice, gravitate to certain aspects of information that they like. And I'm going to tell you what's bad about that. Okay? When you constrain yourself or restrain yourself to one specific system, you're limiting yourself. You're putting yourself in a box, and you're keeping yourself from your consciousness evolving. What I mean by that is this. You have some people, for an example, that are exclusively black Hebrew Israelites. They believe in their mind that it's the only correct way. The information that's taught in that doctrine, the Bible, everything in there is literal, etc., etc. Those that are familiar know what I'm talking about. Then you have some people that are Nation of Islam, and they believe in Islam. They believe in the Quran. They believe that Minister Farrakhan is the successor and messenger to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And they believe that that's the way to go in this day and time. That's what you need to be following. Then you have some people that are Nuwapians, and they think that Dr. York is some type of savior or teacher, which is comical in itself. But they believe that he's the only true guidance, and he's going to get you to some place called Risk or Ilion or Paradise or Heaven or whatever. Then you have a group of people called Moors. You have people who belong exclusively to the Kemetic or the Egyptian community. All right, list goes on and on. I could be here all day talking about this. What people have to understand is we are all those things, and all those things are us. They're just fragments of the aspects of who and what we are as far as our DNA is concerned. Like I said, we are a manifestation and an incarnation of our spiritual ancestors in this day and time. We are an incarnation of them, and they are an incarnation of us. But anything that doesn't evolve or change becomes stagnant or dead. The problem is people that get caught up in these systems or beliefs, okay, they don't change or they don't evolve. Because those aforementioned organizations / doctrines and dogmas only cover certain aspects of the entirety of what we need to know. Now, in essence, if you say, then what are we? It's real simple. You can't put a definition on an existence of something that's been around since the very beginning of time, for lack of a better word. Because the problem is when you put a title on it, you limit the capacity of it. Because if you say you're a Muslim, people can identify with that. Then there's a time frame associated with that religion. And with that time frame, it can be put in a box, then people feel comfortable with it. If you say you're a Hebrew, like Hebrew Israelite, a Jew, same thing with that. Now, if you say you're a Nawapian, that shit goes all over the place because they've jumped to different levels of learning over the years, and that's changed in full capacity just in the last 10 years. And then that's what you call, when you look at it as a whole, inconsistent change. Okay? And what do I mean by that? Change is good as long as it's consistent and it makes sense. Now, unfortunately, when you look at some of the changes in the Nawapian organization, it doesn't make sense. It's not consistent. Therefore, it can be labeled as messed up or not in the confines of basic reasoning or even common sense. Okay? Then you have some people that are Christians and they're all over the place. Okay? You have different sects of Christianity. And I said in that there's confusion because they all claim to follow the same man called Jesus, but yet they can't agree exactly on the same methodology of how these teachings should be administered and exactly how they're explained and exactly how they went down. So the point being is, when you title yourself exclusively to a religion, a dogma, a philosophy, or an organization, you cut off the growth of the evolution of your consciousness. It's that simple. So there is no title. Human beings need a title so subconsciously they can feel like they identify with something. It makes them feel comfortable in their insecurities to explain something they have no knowledge of. So you feel comfortable if you say I identify with Islam, because with Islam is identified certain things that you can Jalibiyas, the certain clothing, the tagiyah, prayer mats, making salah, Allah, there's language, there's a whole different perspective when you identify with something outside of yourself, because it gives you that crutch to lean on to mask your insecurities. But when you go the flip route, if you try to contact the master within, and you'll find out when you do contact the true master within that all that stuff is irrelevant. You don't need it, because all of that stuff comes after the fact. And when I mean after the fact, it comes after the fact of who you are and what you are in your true origin, because that was stuff that was spoon-fed later to our ancestors millions of years later. And what that did was disconnect us from our spiritual ancestors. What do I mean by that? I've mentioned this, Ken, I don't know if it was here on the radio show, but that's irrelevant. When melanated people first came to this country, I might have mentioned this. If I haven't, I'll mention it again. The first thing that was taken from us was culture, the drum, language, and with that culture being taken, all of the magic and the rituals that connected us to our culture, they made sure we didn't practice it anymore by separating different tribes. And then with the bait and switch, when that was removed from us, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about the East Coast slave trade, the West Coast slave trade, the Arab slave trade, etc., they all did the same thing, was separate individuals, take the drum, which was another form of communication, our rituals and our culture, so we couldn't connect with the ancestors. We were able to use our spiritual magic in its pure form before we were disturbed. We were able to get many things accomplished. We didn't have the problems that we have now, People want to know what the solution is for this day and time. It's quite simple. Getting back to the essence of who we were spiritually is the solution to the madness that's going on right now. The more you become submerged in mainstream society, the more you become submerged in their false religions and indoctrinations that they fed you, be it basically monotheism, the main three, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, you become further disconnected from your ancestors. And that block or that wall now is up where they can't make that link with you. So this is the first things they took with us. They took from us. And then they gave us Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And it was the furthest thing from what we were originally. So when you say, and I don't understand why melanated people, it's comical as shit to me. Do you really think the white man cares that you're a black Hebrew Israelite and you're walking around talking about we're going to kill the white man and the end of the world is coming, Babylon's going to be destroyed? They're laughing their ass off at you, first and foremost, because you're doing it on his platform, you're in his cities, and you see these clowns, they're on every corner, on every block, yelling and screaming at people, telling the white man what they're going to do to him, getting on YouTube, telling the white man what they're going to do to him, and they're not going to do anything to the white man. Okay? Bottom line, they're not going to do anything. It's a bunch of rhetoric, and it only is allowed to happen because they allow it to happen. Okay? That poses no threat. Okay? I don't understand why people think in their mind, because you take a religion or a doctrine that they've already infiltrated and destroyed and sprinkle it with some Afrocentricity and think that that's going to change the essence of what that doctrine is teaching. The essence of it, regardless if you're coming from a black perspective or a white perspective, it's still spookism. It deals with spook worship. It still deals with worshiping and putting your trust in things not confirmed or seen. It's that simple. Just because you change the pictures from white to black, it doesn't change the meaning of the message and the essence of the message, and it still deals with spookism, mental slavery, and mind control. That's it. Let me say that again. It deals with spookism, mental slavery, and mind control. Most people are under mental slavery now, and they're not subconsciously aware of it. It's the same thing with Islam. Just because you take a pale Arab's religion and you take it and sprinkle it with Afrocentricity and call the white man the devil if you're the Nation of Islam, and I've said before, which is comical because when you look at the picture of Master Farad Muhammad, he looks 10 times more whiter than I do. Okay? And they'll tell you he's a mixed mulatto. He doesn't look mulatto. He doesn't look Latino. He doesn't look like any ethnicity of any part of the melanated family on the planet. And yes, we can range as fair-skinned, straight hair to wavy hair, long noses to thick noses, broad noses, thick lips. All that ranges in the melanated family. But when I look at Master Farad Muhammad, I don't see that. I see somebody that looks British, like Prince Charles. So it's an oxymoron to say that that was a law in the flesh and then go around calling white people the devil. That shit is comical to me. That's another mind, that's why I said mind control or mental slavery. They've done the bait and switch. All you've done now is taken us from spook worship to man worship again, and then you've instituted in that man worship more spookism. So that shit doesn't work. So there's no threat or no change in saying you're a black Muslim or a black Hebrew or a Nuwapian, because there's no consistency in that shit. That shit is all over the box. That's a whole nother story. Okay? So until we put all these titles on the shelf and leave them alone and get back to who and what we were and get back to the origin and essence of what we need to do, especially in this day and time with all this crazy ass shit going on, okay, and you see it going on every day in the news, there is a concentrated effort to capture the minds of melanated people and control them. Remember, if I can control your mind, I have your soul. Because your mind is what keeps your soul intact. So when you lose your mind, you lose your soul. And they know this. What happens when somebody has a nervous breakdown? They go out of their mind. They're not in the right frame of mind. They can't think correctly no more. So their intent is to get you out of your mind. Your mind. not their mind, out of your mind. Their job is to get you out of your mind into their mindset, so they can start shaping you and condition you to think like they think and to react like they react, to program you the way they want you to be programmed. The only solution of that is to get back to the essence and origin of who and what you are. And this is why we focused on the radio show. This is why we are focused here on the YouTube channel hard on spiritual magic and the subconscious mind. Because that's what magic is. It is manipulating the subconscious mind. True magic. Okay? And I believe on the last post, if I did or did not, I'll briefly run through it again. We have to also stop separating different levels of magic without an understanding and an understanding that basically all they are different degrees of vibration and energy. What do I mean by that? For the most part, what they call Wicca or Wiccan is practiced predominantly. I'm not saying there's no melanated people that don't practice it, but it's predominantly practiced by Europeans or Caucasians. It deals with earth magic. It deals with prosperity. Higher spiritual magic, black magic, not the black magic they term as voodoo and negativity, real pure black magic, because black deals with balancement, deals with manipulation of the subconscious mind and putting concentrated effort and thoughts behind things to make them happen, because it's all dealing with the power of the mind anyway. It's all dealing with the power of the mind anyway. This is either your best friend or your worst enemy. This is what imprisons you from either not growing or not getting to the level you need to get to. So we have to get out of our mind the illusion. For an example, they've also infiltrated this level of information to a certain extent. For the most part, when you hear the word pagan, right, some people will associate that word with Satanism, voodoo, witchcraft, devil worship, all types of negativity when they hear the word pagan. Now, the funny thing is, to show how people are programmed, most people don't even know what the word pagan means, the origin of the word, and where it comes from. That would maybe help them understand what that really means. What does it mean? The word pagan comes from the Latin word pagani, and all it means is one who lives in the country. Go look it up. How did that get correlated with the negative aspects of magic, witchcraft, voodoo, Satanism, all these things that they've given titles to, which just deal with the higher metaphysical, spiritual, and magical sciences? Okay? That's it. I use that one little example to show how easy it is to indoctrinate people mentally. And I find, even in the conscious community, amongst melanated people, I'm not saying all melanated people, a lot of people are still spooked out about that topic because they don't know where to put it into perspective. Now, you have another group of people who claim to be Kemetic and go back to Egypt and know nothing about Egyptian magic. Okay? Know nothing about Usia or Osirian magic. Know nothing about this Red Ankh magic. You can search forever and ever and try to find it. You'll find very limited on it. The only way you know the essence of it is if you practice it. Which leads us to another thing you constantly hear us saying on the radio show, and you hear me say here, you have to do the work. You have to do the spiritual work, because not everything is recorded and found in a book. Okay? So you can read 1,000,000 books, and I'm not saying to read books. I read tons of books. I'm saying read and absorb everything you can, but take that information, put it into perspective, and then make it work for you, because everything you read is not going to apply to you. Okay? Because depending on where you are in your spiritual evolution and journey, some things won't apply to you in the sense because you're past it intellectually and mentally and spiritually, and some things won't apply to you in the now because you're not at that point yet. So you may not understand it yet. Doesn't mean it's not true. It just means you haven't raised yourself up to the reality of that truth. Because like I said in the very beginning of this post, truth really is based on the fact you raise your realization, you raise yourself up to the realization of the reality of that truth, then it becomes truth. And this all deals here with the mental and the mind. So we have to get ourselves out of this state of mental slavery, spookism, and indoctrinations. Because if we don't, we're still going to have these petty arguments. Now, if it's your thing, it's your thing. But I'm not going to sit here debating over a mythological book that has no validity to it. I'm not going to get into a religious debate with you. It's a waste of time and energy. I can smash that shit from front to back. I know that Bible from front to back. I know that Quran from the very first chapter to the last, because I wrote it. And when I say I wrote it, I mean all the ancestors and all your ancestors that are connected to you by DNA. That was a simplified way of feeding to the masses something that had a deeper meaning, and that's religion. It's watered down in the essence, and certain people took levels of information and watered it down to you and gave it to you in its incorrect form to control you. But God knows that Bible. When I say God, meaning you, me. So it's not worth the time and energy to sit there and debate over nonsense that holds no validity. We want to sit here and debate, my God is right, Allah is the right God. No, it's Jehovah. No, it's Allah. No, it's this, it's that. No, you need to be a black Muslim. No, you need to be a Moor. Moor is the right way to go. No, you need to be a Nuwapian. No, you need to join the Nation of Islam. No, you need to be a black Hebrew Israelite. Look at all this nonsense amongst melanated people arguing over shit that's irrelevant, that came again after the fact to who and what they were. And I pose simple questions like, for monotheism, real simple. The first established form of monotheism, according to biblical information, to make this clear, Moses was given the law, so-called, or the Torah. He was given the 613 commandments that are in your Torah today. Now, my question I pose is, prior to who they call Moses, because that term Jews or Hebrews, Jew is a modern day term, let's use the word Israelites, was specifically, or that established religion of Judaism came with the foundation of Moses, the establishment of the law. Any basic person would agree with that. Now my question is, prior to Moses, going back on to Abraham, back on to Adam, what was their religion? What way of life did they practice? Don't say they followed the Hebraic law, because there was no Hebraic law that came with Moses. So the question that I pose, and I've continued to pose and still don't get a logical explanation, what way of life were they practicing? It's that simple. People give me their interpretation on it. Well, you see, that still deals with the line of Israel on back to Adam. I didn't ask you to prove that the genealogies aren't connected. That's not the question that's being asked. I am asking people, prior to the law given to Moses or the Torah, show me anywhere in the Bible where it says that the prophets prior to Moses were Hebrews. They weren't. You want to know where the word Hebrew first appears in the Bible? And this is going to smash up your whole concept of the word Hebrew. Anybody can go look this up in the Bible after they're done watching this video. Genesis chapter 14 verse 13 is where the first time you see the word Hebrew in the Bible. Now, you're going to read it in English, and it's going to say, when Abraham crossed the Tigris-Euphrates River, he was referred to one who crossed over, or Ibre, one who crosses over. Ibre is the word for Hebrew in the Aramaic. Go look it up, research it for yourself. It just simply means one who crosses over. Just like the word Arab means wanderer. Why am I bringing that up? Because Arab and Hebrew are not ethnicities or races. They are actions that describe a specific event. So people that are walking around for years and years now calling themselves Jews or Hebrews or Arabs, that is not their ethnicity. Okay? It is not a race. It's a self-proclaimed nationality that was taken upon by incidences or titles or actions or attributes described in the Bible. Now, we know when you look at some of these people today that call themselves Arabs and Jews, they're mixed with Indo-Aryans, Hindus, Europeans, Turks, and Africans, and many other different subcultures that merge into their DNA. This would make up genetically their race. This is not who they are. When they describe themselves as being Hebrews or Jews, that's not who they are. That just identifies them with an incident that took place in a certain culture. So Genesis 14:13 is the first place you ever see the word Hebrew mentioned in the Bible. And it had nothing to do with a religion. It described an action that Abraham did when he crossed the Tigris-Euphrates River. So what, for an example, and I'm not saying any of these characters in the Bible existed, because they didn't. They go back to existing characters from previous stories in Africa, Egypt, and Samaria. You'll find the flood story, for an example, recorded in the Gilgamesh epics in Samaria. You find it in multiple different African cultures, a flood story recorded, etc. And these stories predate the existence of your Bible. So we know that the biblical story of Noah was taken from cultures that predated it. But my question is, what was Abraham's religion according to the Bible? What was Abraham's religion? There's no logical explanation for it, because this came after the fact. If you research who Abraham was according to the Bible and who his father Terah was, they were from the land of Chaldea, or Ur of Chaldea. They practiced the religion that was predominant in the land at that time, dealing with Zoroastrianism, the Sumerian doctrine. When you go look at that region, this is what they dealt with prior to being introduced after the fact to these modern day religions that are being impressed upon our subconscious in this day and time. That's simple. What was Adam's religion according to the Bible? Now, if you say that this doesn't make sense, then you're not following anything that I'm telling you. Let's go back now. All right. You have to also understand, in Genesis chapter 4, verse 26, is the first time that men ever began to pray or call upon the name of so-called God. And again, I'm saying according to Bible theology, for those of you that are stuck in the Bible and can't get out of this shit, that's the first time that men ever had to call upon the name of the Creator. Okay, let's talk about this. It says, and then Enos, and the word Enos in Hebrew means mortal or human, fell upon his face and prayed, and then it says this was the first time that men began to call upon the name of the Most High or God. Go read it for yourself. Now, who was Enos? Because again, in the etymology of the words and the origin of the words in their original language will clarify a lot of who these people were. The word Enos means mortal. Okay? Enos was the son of Seth. Who was Seth? Seth means he who was compensation. Seth was the son of Adam, according to the Bible, correct? Now, why was Seth given to Adam? Because after Cain slew Abel, who did Adam request that his next son be in the image and likeness of? Human beings, not the gods. Go back and read it. So they named him Seth because he was compensation for who they call Abel. Why am I telling you all this shit? Because I'm trying to show you these were stories that predated what you know as monotheism today. They were grafted out of the story. When you're reading the Cain and Abel story, that's the same story as Satuk and Heru when they were arguing and warring. It's the same story as Enki and Enlil when you read the Sumerian story. What I'm trying to show you is this was copied from generation to generation and passed down through time, and depending on whatever culture it was in, they just adjusted it to their language, and they might have added their interpretation on it to fit their culture. So in essence, what I'm saying is none of this shit is really true in origin of what you call the Bible or the Quran or the biblical or the Quranic characters, because what we're talking about predates that. It's irrelevant. Then when you go further back into the Egyptian mysteries and you deal with the stories of the Egyptian deities, the creation stories, these were trying to dictate things that take place in nature and creation and the internal spiritual battles that you deal with within yourself on a daily basis. It doesn't mean to take this shit literal and worship it and venerate it and then become a mental slave to it. Unfortunately, that's what's happened to us. When I just say us, I'm speaking in general. That's what's happened on a wide scale level. People have become slaves to these systems of indoctrination. They've become so submerged in them exclusively that spiritually they're not vibrating on the correct frequency anymore. It all boils down to the power of self, the master within, and tapping into your subconscious mind, which opens the porthole, the doorways, and the dimensions to a limitless level of divine consciousness that can't even be put into words. We've been here all day talking about it. You have the power to access anything you need be in the universe. And I don't just say that to sound like some hocus pocus shit, because if you doubt yourself on it, then you're an individual that still has a very long way to go spiritually. You're just not at that point yet. The power of self and the mind is the most powerful thing when you know how to work it correctly. Okay? So the only way things are going to change is when we completely separate ourselves from these systems of indoctrination. What do I mean though? So let's delve a little deeper into this. I'm going to talk about something that we talked about this past Thursday night on the radio show. We had Brother Panic on, and again, much respect and love to Brother Panic for constantly coming on and blessing us with 4.5 to 5 hour shows worth of information that's priceless. And again, it's done simply out of the fact for loving to do it. But let's briefly talk about something we had discussed on the show. This is what people fail to realize sometimes. Most of us have been programmed through these religious schools of thought. Just because we say we don't like it anymore doesn't mean we have addressed the impact and the trauma that it has had on our subconscious minds. Because we were spoon-fed these systems of indoctrination from a very early age. So really raising yourself up to the reality and the understanding of it comes with a lot more than just saying, oh, I don't deal with the religion anymore. I'm not a Christian. But have you really addressed the trauma and the impact of how it's affected you? Because this is why some people can't make it to that next leap, because they haven't specifically addressed specific incidences or situations of how it impacts them mentally. So that has to be addressed, clarified, so an individual can move on and continue to spiritually grow. Because in this day and time, all of us have been affected by it on one level or another. It's that simple. But have we truly addressed it so we can move on? Most people think consciously they have. But have they really dug into the subconscious to see what kind of impact it's had on them and how it's affecting them in this day and time? And I guarantee if you do it, you'll find out it's affecting you more than you think you know. So this would explain why some of our people can't come out of the idiocy of monotheistic religions. Okay? Because they haven't really addressed the impact. So what they do is they cover it up and mask it, and they go from one extreme, for an example, of being submerged and indoctrinated with European or white Christianity, where everything was still the same as far as spookism and beliefs, but the images might have been painted white. And then they go to the extreme, say, of being a black Hebrew Israelite, where they just paint everything black. But like I said in the beginning, the origin and essence of the message does not change. It's still telling you you can only worship this God. If you don't listen and behave, you're going to be cast and burnt and sent to hell. If you're not part of this group here, you or the 144,000, you won't make it to heaven. You see, it still creates those mental systems of indoctrination. Doesn't matter if you sprinkle it with a white influence or a black influence. The origin, the essence of the message is still the same, and it's incorrect. Doesn't matter how you sprinkle it. These are the things that need to be addressed, and this is why it doesn't work. But in this day and time, unfortunately, you have people that still want to have debates over this nonsense. Now, years ago when I was younger and not as wiser, I would spend hours upon hours just ripping Christians and Muslims and Jews up, tearing their ass up, most of the time at that time for the fun of it. But I realized that as I got older that that's not productive. And sometimes now as you get older, you got to save your energy for people that really need it and really want to hear the truth. So I wouldn't waste my time and energy on that nonsense in this day and time. Them days is over. Everybody sees it's more to the story. And if you don't, then there's definitely something wrong with you. You're just not at that level. But anyway, I think we've covered a decent amount of information on this topic of not being enslaved or being a mental slave or being indoctrinated with all these false concepts that cut off the evolution of our consciousness. We have to address this and move forward. We can't keep ourselves submerged in this or nothing will change. Period. So people want to know, when will change come? Change will come when we give everything back to them that they gave us and we reprogram our subconscious mind and teach it the correct things that it needs to get it back to that state. As long as we keep holding on to Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, and all these other religions and dogmas that come along with it, these false concepts of information, as long as we keep holding on to them, we're going to constantly be in the situation we're in. So I hope that makes it clear. And again, I think it's self-explanatory. This is the day and time we live in. It's time we take this to a whole nother notch, a whole nother level. But anyway, we'll get further into that another time. Just to make a couple quick announcements. Coming up on the show this Thursday, I believe it's the 13th, this Thursday, August 13th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are going to have the one and only incredible Dr. Jewel Pookrum on the show. And I definitely would suggest females and especially young female children, you know, have them tune in this show so they can see a great female role model that one can be influenced by is Dr. Jewel Pookrum, because she goes in on a whole different level on neuromelanin, the brain, etc. And in my opinion, she by far is the best female scholar out there right now. So definitely, sisters, young female children, don't want to miss this show. We had her on once before a few months ago. If you didn't catch it, catch this one, participate in this one, man. We're going to have a great time. Followed up by that, we're going to have Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum back on the show on the 20th. And we're going to get Brother Panic back again this month, at the end of the month, the last Thursday of this month. We're going to get Brother Panic back on the show and go in a little harder and a little deeper. Okay? If you need to contact me, any questions, you can contact me at khnum19@gmail.com. That's khnum19@gmail.com. You can also contact me at that email if you would like to set up a spiritual consultation or a spiritual reading, two different things. If you're interested in either or, I'll explain. A spiritual consultation is an open discussion on anything you want to talk about, advice on spiritual matters, or if you just need answers to questions on different levels of information. It deals with a broad spectrum of things. A spiritual reading would be something like dealing with the runes, reading stones, or some system of divination to maybe look into the future and touch on certain events. There's different methodologies of it. But again, if interested, that'll be explained further in detail. If you're interested, again, you can contact at that same email address, khnum19@gmail.com. All right, that's all I think I have for you this week. And until next week, whatever the spirits and the ancestors lead us to, up until that point, that could be anything from now until next week, that's what we'll discuss. So I couldn't tell you what we're going to discuss because I don't really plan none of this shit. I just go on the spur of the moment, whatever the spirit is thinking. If it tells me to grab a book and go over a certain piece of information, that's what we do. If it says talk about this, that's what we do. If it says do what we do tonight, that's what we do. That's called doing the work, people. And once you do the work on that level, you will find out everything starts to fall in place and take a systematic order that it needs to take in your universe. You'll understand that and understand that further on your spiritual journey. Anyway, having said that, it's Brother Beniti Amun Ray saying Hotep, checking out, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.